Meeting. My name is Councillor Ross Melton, Chair of this committee. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping points to cover. Please can officers introduce themselves before speaking for the first time. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. By taking part, you are consenting to be recorded. If the fire alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting. Please leave via the staff fire exit, which is behind me on my right. Officers will direct you to the assembly point on Riverside Gardens. Item 1, apologies for absence. 3 apologies have been received from Councillor Homan and Councillor Pascu Tilbury, as well as co-opted member Mike Adam. Item 2, can I ask if members have any declarations of interest? Fantastic. Item 3, minutes of our previous meeting. Do members approve the open and exempt minutes from our previous meeting? Thank you very much. Moving on then to item 4. Delighted to see Eleanor Dennis in her place. Can I ask you to introduce our first item on key performance indicators?
Good evening, committee. Thank you, Chair. So this first paper sets out the key performance indicators for the Pension Administration Service provided by LPPA for the period July to September 25, quarter 2. So there were slightly less cases received with no change to the high volume case types of deferred retirements and death cases. Case types with sustained performance were active retirements, which in quarter 2 saw 16 more cases processed in conjunction with a much improved KPI, so from 95.5 to 97.5. So all cases were processed within the SLA, and death cases also saw more cases processed, but with a slight dipping in KPI. So whilst the KPIs have been maintained above the 95% target, I have noticed a dip in the quality of service received by myself and my team in terms of obtaining key information from LPPA, getting the stats and quarterly reports on time and accurate. And so I am monitoring that. So just to let you know that key performance is not the only indicator of a good service, and there are some concerns wider in terms of the quality of the service. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Eleanor. Can you take us through what you think are the reasons for what have you been able to glean from your interactions with LPPA to maybe explain the decline in the speed of their responses?
It's not so much, so I think it's about training. So in terms of the resource that's available, there's a high turnover. It's very difficult to find experienced resource. And then, those checks and balances are not in place. So in terms of the checker, there's things slipping through the net that myself or my team spot that actually we're paying for a service. They should have been spotted in-house. So one key one is with death cases. Also with the payment, so we make weekly payments in respect of refunds, lump sum payments, death grants. There are errors that we're spotting in there and having then to delay the payment going out. So all of these areas I've highlighted to LPPA. They have put dedicated people on to be able to respond to such queries more quickly, but that quality, it has slipped. Also noting in my next paper that they have onboarded a new client, and I wonder whether that's part of that, because again in my next paper when we talk about satisfaction, just sort of anecdotally, I know that we're not the only fund to see that dip.
And I know you keep a strong dialogue in with your counterparts at other funds, which I'm sure corroborates that. So if I've understood you correctly, our analysis is churn at their end and onboarding this new client has taken away resource.
Yeah, I think we should continue to monitor them closely in terms of that quality piece and whether we then see a dip in the KPI performance.
And do we still have the buy-in from? I recall you were working very closely. Is it John Crowhurst who was the sort of lead man at their side who was giving us a bit more attention last year? Is that still the case?
Good memory, Chair. Unfortunately not. I have noticed that level of attention to us as a client. pull away. So I'm not sure what's happening with the dynamics. I suspect he's probably leading on the new client, you know, giving them the best service, but that's at a cost to us.
He is their kind of point man. It's not surprising that he's being put onto the new project. Maybe something for us to push for is once that's bedded in, a reallocation. Any further questions, observations? Please, Adam Peter.
Thank you for that report. Seems to be generally very positive, actually, or positive. Work on retirement seems to have improved, and the liaison with the LPPA. I get all these acronyms, I get muddled up with them, but SLA as well. But it seems to be positive progress, but I think we need to keep it under review, because I do remember on this committee not that long ago, we were concerned about not so much the performance of your team, far from it, but performance of others. And I know that you've been working hard to work with them to make sure that that is better. So I think I'd just say, you know, very good progress, but let's keep it under review, and do indicate to us if there's concerns that you have with others that you have to work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I certainly will do that. Thanks.
Hi, Eleanor. Peter Parkin, co-opted member. I don't know if this is this item or the next item, or a combination of both, but I've noticed that some of my members who are transitioning from the council into retirement, when they, and this is to do with the portal, the members portal thing, when they try to take their LBHF login details to their private details, and they complete that transaction on the portal, it keeps reverting back to their LBHF login. So, for example, Chair, what might happen is you might try to log in and it says LBHF. Now that you're leaving, you can change to your private information so you don't get caught up in going back to LBHF because you've left now. So once you start to put in your private stuff, it then says we're going to send you a one-time verification code to LBHF, but some of the members have left. So they're finding that there seems to be a glitch in the system. Even though it allows you to change over to your private email, it seems to be reverting back to its LBHF email. I don't know if you could take that up, Ella.
Thank you, Peter. I wasn't aware of that being
No.
an issue, and I certainly will escalate that and come back to you with feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Unless there are any further questions, can I ask members to note the report? Thank you very much. Staying with you then, Eleanor, with the pension administration update, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper sets out a summary of activity in the pension administration and operations of the fund, including LPPA's key initiatives and the heavy pensions legislative agenda. So touched on in my last update around member satisfaction. So that fell to 7% from 28% for active retirements, and 28% to 16% for deferred retirements. So that is quite a significant drop. We believe that it's around general service and poor communication from LPPA in terms of managing members' expectations. So members having to chase, having to say, well, what's going on with a particular case type, so transfer, retirement, etc. In addition, so help desk saw the average wait time fall to 3 minutes 11 seconds. However, early indications for October sit at 4 minutes 50. So I am expecting that to jump back up for Q3. So all the indicators are there that actually there's going to be a dip in the performance that we're receiving. The good news is that all pension saving statements were issued ahead of the 31st of October deadline. The valuation is on track, so all fund employers have been advised of their draft contribution rates, and they have until the end of December to raise any queries. So that's gone out to 75 employers. The dashboard, so the regulatory deadline for connection of the dashboard was the 31st of October. For us as a fund, unfortunately, LPPA missed that deadline. for all of their clients. They have informed the regulator, as have I. It's not a breach of the law. And the revised connectivity date from their software provider, Civica, is mid-December. I'm due to have a call within the next week with further update on that. But again, that's an example of how I've been pushing quite hard for, well, okay, if you're not going to meet it, when are you going to actually comply by that? And it's been really, really hard to get any kind of traction on to a definitive answer. You know, it's, for me, it's very simple. You overestimate and then, you know, you deliver well within that timeline, but they're not even being able to give me a deadline in terms of that, which is very frustrating. Moving on to the wider legislative piece. So it has definitely 2025 been a year of consultations. So in the last few months, we've got 2 open consultations with big changes for the LGPS. We're waiting for draft guidance to be used in conjunction with the with the new regulations, and that was going to come out before Christmas. It's now moved to New Year. The changes there are about access for yourselves and mayors, the minimum retirement age, differences to academies and how they're joining the fund, as well as other areas such as governance and pooling. So it really is a frantic time in pensions. The pace is quite rapid. Those changes are going to come in post April 26 with final deadlines of October 2026. So it's a really busy year, lots going on. Welcome any questions.
So I assume our analysis is again that we've been affected by the kind of churn and their reallocation of resources to onboarding. For this call that you have on the Civica reconnection, is that just with ourselves or is it all of their customers who are participating?
Chair, it's with all of their clients. And just to be clear, it's not LPPA per se, it's Civica, the ISP provider, but equally they're managing the contract. And so you would expect them to be push quite hard on delivery of that third party.
Yeah, that's PPA pushing very, very hard. Excellent. So there will be an opportunity on that for you to kind of band together and push for
Absolutely, Chair, yes.
Peter.
Eleanor, with the missed deadlines of the dashboard, is there anything or is there nothing, or is it just, are we sort of held to ransom and just have to wait until they decide that it's going to be up and running? Because did you say next year, October 26 or something, that the dashboard will be up and running? Or did I get that wrong?
So thanks for that question, Peter. So for clarification, our deadline was October of this year. We don't have a go live date for the general public to use that service, that dashboard. They've muted 2027, but you know, things move. So we don't hold on to that date too tightly. It's Civica that are due to deliver that. Yes, in some respects, we are held to ransom by their own timescales. They have other clients themselves. I do know that the second tranche of testing has gone through successfully, but it's still getting them to commit and deliver to a specific date that we can then feed back to the regulator and be compliant.
And just to follow up, so does it mean that is there nothing that, I suppose there's no amount of pressure that we can impress upon them? Because for the members, for a go live dashboard, it's really important, and it for some of the members, it's their only communication tool. Although you can phone up and stuff like that, but I just don't know what the committee could do to I mean, that's a long time, isn't it? 2027. That's a really long time.
So thank you for your feedback, Peter. Just to clarify, that date of 2027 is set by the central government, so it's not.
Oh, right.
It's not set by ourselves or anybody at LPPA or Civica. So that's a nationwide thing. It includes private sector schemes as well. So that's the prospective go live date to the general public, where they'll be able to access any pension fund that they've ever been a part of and connect with that, because it's a huge problem in the UK in terms of lost pensions. People work all over the place, they're transient, and then when it comes to retirement, they have no idea what pension provision they have from 40, 50 years ago. So we don't have any influence there. But I do think, given that this is the second regulatory deadline that LPP have missed, regardless of working with other stakeholders, it wouldn't be amiss to a formal letter, Chair, from the committee to stress that actually this isn't the service that we're expecting from LPPA, and they need to manage these deadlines better. And that's not unreasonable ask, given that other software providers have met the deadline.
Thank you.
I think that's a really welcome suggestion, Eleanor. And if the committee agreed, I'd be delighted if you could prepare a draft. Any further questions? Please, Adam Peter.
Yes, there's hardly a dash for the dashboard, but anything we can do to help with that, because this has come up regularly, and if we're not doing the best we can, we should be pushing back on that. So thank you for that. Am I right in thinking in this particular report you've mentioned you've got some new staff?
I have got some new staff.
Right.
Yes.
3 new staff recruitment. So I just want to ask you a general question before just asking around, as I do, occasionally, just trying to find out what it's like out there at the moment, especially with the pensions bill coming and everything like that. Are you finding it, obviously you've got 3 new staff and they're going to be a great benefit to the team, but are you finding it more of a challenge at the moment in terms of recruitment and retention, or is that just something that's everybody's facing at the moment? I'd just be interested in your response to that. But these 3 new staff, they've just recently been appointed, have they? So you must be pleased with that, are you? Because you have indicated before that you've, certain things we've been talking to you about, that because of the lack of people in your team, that it's been a challenge. But obviously this is a positive. Is that right?
So yes, Councillor, these 3 staff are replacing staff that have moved on. So it's not new posts, but it's a really valid point that you've raised, and it's something in terms of the recruitment and retention, in terms of it is extremely difficult to recruit the right staff for complex LGPS inquiries. You need a certain skill set and experience to do that, but we're not alone in that. So whether you're a third-party administrator or whether you're a fund that does or doesn't have the admin in-house, it is exceptionally difficult to recruit. So at any given time, you will have 6, 7+ funds looking for the same level of staff. Whereas 5, 10 years ago, it would be 1 fund looking at any particular time. Those jobs would rarely come up. So it is a particularly difficult time, especially given the high legislative agenda, which is piling on the workload for us all, and then having to manage that with finding new staff, onboarding them, training them, etc.
Just come back on that, because as a council, we pride ourselves on being a good place to come and work, and we recruit top quality staff across the board. I know it's a challenge at the moment, but if there's anything more that this committee can do to encourage that, then especially with the pensions bill coming, I mean, there's big change, isn't there? So I'm just conscious of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I may well come back to you with a plan there regarding the team going forward, but thank you for the offer.
I think that would be extremely welcome. As Adam Peters mentioned, we have discussed staffing a number of times, as well as pay and conditions, and whether we're able to offer something more competitive to be able to attract that talent. So I would very much welcome your view.
Thank you for that support, Chair.
Any further questions? Peter?
Just want to make the committee aware of that H&F run pre-retirement sessions. and I attended one. Can you believe that? I attended one, and yeah. And just to make the committee aware, they're fantastic for people who don't really think about pensions. And then when you're coming up to pension age, you think, oh dear me, you get very nervous about how it all works and where it all fits and stuff. And the sessions are really, 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 very, very good. And thank you for arranging them. But just to let the committee aware that they're very well attended. Actually, you get a lot of attendance on those. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Peter. So they're run by Affinity Connect. I get nothing but 100% positive feedback, and they're very informative and inclusive. So I'm glad that you feel the same way, Peter. Thank you.
Sounds like it was quite an educational experience, Peter. Would it be possible to know when the upcoming sessions are? So Councillor said the option to observe if available.
Certainly, Chair. It's a good idea. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Perfect. If there are no further queries, can I ask members to note the report? Fabulous. Finally, staying with you, Eleanor, can you introduce the public elements of pension fund cessations?
Thank you, Chair. So this paper sets out the recommendation for the committee for 2 fund employers or 2 contracts for the same employer, Morgan Sindor Lot 1 and Lot 2, who have ceased in the fund with a surplus, and we will discuss arrangements for that surplus in the exempt appendix. But welcome any questions in the open session.
I look forward to returning to this. Excellent. Then let's move swiftly on to item 7, responsible investment update. Sian.
Thank you, Chair. Sian Cogley, Pension Fund Manager. This report sets out the pension fund's ongoing work to integrate environmental, social and governance considerations into our investment approach and reflects the committee's discussions earlier this year on the fund's exposure to defence-related holdings and geopolitical investments. You'll see the updated responsible investment statement with a new addendum on conflict and human rights included in the pack, also capturing the 3-tier classification system that was discussed in September and providing clearer expectations for the fund managers. There's also been updates from the London CIV on their role in supporting partner funds in the policies. If we could please now take any questions on this item.
To kick us off, Sian and Phil, I was reviewing the statement in preparation for this meeting, and I was very pleased with the work that had gone into it and how closely it reflected both the quality and the tenor of the discussion that we'd had earlier in the year. I was particularly pleased to see that the traffic lighting system had made it in there. To reconfirm, it was only one investment, wasn't it, that we had identified as red traffic lighted, being against, at odds with our investment principles.
That's correct. That was Elbit Systems, and it was, I think, £1,500 at the time of the last meeting.
Excellent. Excellent. I will maybe return to that later. And Peter.
Thank you for this report, and it's well worth looking at, considering I think it was September the 9th that we discussed this, and I think it's important to note that we have made progress on this. And thank you for that. I said at the time, and I'm particularly keen, and I echo what the chair's just said there, I like this traffic light approach. I think it's reasonable. And again, speaking to others, as I try and do from outside of Hammersmith and Fulham from time to time, this is an issue that we're all grappling with, all committees such as ours. But I think that this is I wouldn't say innovative way, but it's certainly a positive way of approaching a very complicated topic. And I just want to declare now that I've had quite a lot, not a lot, I've had a number of correspondence with residents prior to this meeting, including residents in the ward that I represent. And I haven't responded in any detail to them. I've just acknowledged the 2 residents in my ward. I think that's important. I do that. But I just think it's important that we are able to say from your report and what the chair said today that we are continuing to look at this matter, but we are making progress on it. given that it's such a sensitive area. And we would all agree on that. And I would particularly commend this traffic light approach that we're operating. Are other committees such as ours adopting that particular way of looking at things? Do you know? Spread sort of.
So the current approach with the London Civ is a similar thing whereby, I mean, they call it the buckets. There's the three classifications of kind of light ESG, middling and heavy ESG tilt, for which we will bring back a paper at a future committee for the committee to decide which approach suits them best. But in terms of this approach that looks at it in terms of a traffic light, as far as I know, we're the only ones that are doing that.
Sean, thank you for the report. I think the report is comprehensive in the fact that it goes through in great detail historical stuff and tries to bring it in line with what we're doing at the moment. And I think it out for anybody who outside the organ here who would like to read it. It explains our situation very well and the complexities that we face as a committee or as managing funds. It just goes to break down and show how complicated investment is. Thankfully, we don't have so much. We don't have a lot of investments in very sensitive areas, which is fabulous. And the report shows that. And again, I echo what the chair says about I welcome the draft statements, but it's definitely breaks down in great detail complexities of this present situation in terms of its governance and its social and economical environment. So thank you for the report.
I just wanted to comment on a particular aspect of the report that I also found particularly interesting and perhaps would be good to think about how we can talk to pension members more about it. And that's how we've tagged certain elements, I think it's of the London Civ, to specific SDGs. And I think it serves as a really good reminder that, as Peter rightly said, investment is complex. And I think we're seeing that more and more in the current geopolitical climate, but actually pensions have a huge potential for net positive impact, and seeing the links to SDG 3, good health and well-being, and 7, affordable and clean energy. And I think most people would agree that health and energy are two huge challenges that the world and the UK is facing at the moment. So to really sort of I'm just really pleased to see that our pension fund is having a net positive contribution. And I think it's really important that we make sure that that's communicated to members at the same time as recognising the complexities within the global investment landscape.
Thank you very much. I wanted to add to what's been said. This is a very, very good document. It has the necessary breadth and also the necessary depth of detail. It puts fiduciary duty front and centre, which I think is so important. But it also recognises that as a fund, we are also creating a better future for our members to retire into. So I wanted to give a bit of cross-party air cover, if it's at all necessary. And thank you very much for producing this.
Thank you for those contributions. Now, to wrap this one up, I will provide a little bit of context, mostly for the benefit of the minutes than folk here. As folk will be aware, this committee became aware of our defence and geopolitical exposure more than a year ago, and that was initially that was uncovered here in this chamber, not through external pressure. As a result, we initiated a 3-stage process. First, to audit and understand our exposure, which is where the traffic light process was initially conceived. That put investments in 3 different buckets: green, where we thought there was no risk identified; amber where further discussion and examination was appropriate and necessary, and red where we could see a particular investment was not aligned with our values. The second stage of that process was a very legal one, which we're just finalizing now with this report, which was to update our investment values. This provides us with the justification, where appropriate, to push into the third phase, which is divestment. If we were to move and to divest before updating this statement, it would be unjustifiable. So I'm very grateful to officers for the work that they have put in over a long period to make sure that this is both a robust, meaningful, and fair process that cannot be disputed in its validity. I'm extremely grateful to that work. I'm also extremely grateful to members who have been fielding a lot of questions from their residents, as well as members of this fund, and have carried themselves with great decorum and clarity in the way that they've communicated out to those members. Pontificating over, can I ask members to ratify and approve the updated responsible investment statement?
Approved.
Excellent. To return to Albert, this now provides us with the legal justification and rationale to divest. I know, Phil, that you've been putting a lot of work into understanding the appropriate mechanisms for making that divestment. Do you mind just expanding on that for a moment or two?
Yeah, so the company is part of the index to which we adhere to in our investment process. Obviously, a pooled fund with a passive index tracker that's very, very cheap to run, that performs to market expectation very accurately. So in terms of our influence on the makeup of that index, in terms of hoiking it out, very little. Because it does represent a basket full of global stocks, and the choice of that is down to the index provider, which is FTSE. There is a precedent in terms of hoiking stocks out, and the good one is from Kensington and Chelsea, that followed such a process when it insisted that it would not invest in any companies associated with the Grenfell debacle, and those specific companies that had done so much damage, and whose negligence resulted in, well, partly resulted in the tragedy. So Kensington and Chelsea wiped their hands of those stocks. The fund employed BlackRock to compile a special index, and it's that index minus those stocks to which we adhere, but it's expensive to do that. There's a cost involved in compiling the index, and then in terms of getting a fund manager to follow it, we pay a lot more than we would do for any vanilla pension fund index. So I would suggest, in terms of just this one stock, where there is £1,500 worth of exposure, whether it's worthwhile to do that. I think as officers, we just need to continue to engage through the local authority pension fund forum, through the pressure groups that exist, through engagement with BlackRock, and see if there is a route such that this one stock, if the pressure could be brought to bear on basically expelling it from the index.
I'd make 2 points, Phil. Is the first is that the Kensington and Chelsea model is a useful one for us to have as an example. It's not an easy one for us to replicate here, is it? Because if our concern is a particular kind of stock from a particular sector in a particular region, we're talking about K&C excluding half a dozen, 4 stocks, whereas we are potentially opening the door on excluding thousands. Each exclusion comes with its own cost, am I correct? So for me, that doesn't seem like a long-term tenable or sustainable way for us to manage this fund, continually sort of playing whack-a-mole, where you know, as we become aware of additional stocks or additional exposure, we'll face additional pressure. So but at the same time, we have identified a stock which does not adhere to our values. We need to find a reasonable and sustainable way to action that. And I'm very grateful, as I say, to the work that you and the team have put into that. But I think we need to make a bit further, put a bit further thought into it to find a solution to this one.
And that possibility comes with the CIV's approach in its three bucket approach, and you pick a shade of responsible investment that what you'd like to adhere to. Obviously, if there's a change of particular portfolios whereby there might be a cost of transition from switching from one to the other, then that can be set out in a paper. But I would suggest we could possibly bring that to the next committee, first committee into 2026, and maybe get the CIV along to represent it.
I think that's an exceptional suggestion. Please do. Excellent. Moving on then to item 8. Staying with you, if you don't mind, Sian, can you introduce the pension fund business plan outrun, please?
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an overview of how the fund performed against objectives that were set out in the previous year's business plan, including progress on key projects, service delivery, governance activity, and financial management. I'll take this opportunity to apologise for an omission in the table, highlighting key variances found on page 83 of the public pack is regarding the LCIV absolute return fund. This should also be included in the table that, as the same situation as Allspring, the committee and officers already identified that this fund's fees would be much lower than the original budget in the original business plan when the outturn for 2023-24 was brought for review. But we left the original forecast in this document so that the year-on-year comparisons remained consistent. The lower fees are due to 3 main factors. The LCIV updated its fee structure for the project in the time period, and although the change itself was small, the original budget was based on an incorrect rate. Also, the budget in the year that was set had an unusually high amount of transition costs in that year, where there was a lot of divestment to make new investments from the RAFA fund. We assumed a similar level of activity in future years, but fewer new investments were made from this fund in the end because the transaction costs ended up much lower than forecast, and that's because they were funded from elsewhere, such as the Aviva divestment came in, and then some funding was made from that. In terms of future forecasts, we have some better data going forward now. The CIV now provides quarterly fee breakdowns, giving us clearer and more reliable information for forecasting. We'll bring the business plan for 25-26 and 26-27 to the March meeting of this committee, and we would now welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. Just a quick one on FOI requests. Would you be able to give us a flavour of how many received and what significant and non-significant means in terms of delay?
I think this will be split across Eleanor and myself. I think Eleanor's team has also received an increase. We are noticing an increase in ones that we're receiving, and the level of information that's being requested. I would say, for example, off the top of my head, in 23-24, I think there was 9 requests, and it was closer to double that in this current year that we're working in. I think I've already received 11 so far regarding pension investments.
Would it be correct to suppose that it was related to our previous item?
Yes, quite a few, but we also get quite a lot of quarterly ones from public companies that want to use the data to sell and make indexes and things like that. So they ask us what our closed-ended funds are invested in. So we get quite a lot of repeat ones from information companies.
Interesting. And Eleanor, a similar experience?
Well, yes, I just echo Sian's stats. That's about right. That they are predominantly on the investment piece over the last 12 months for sure, as opposed to general. Previously, the previous 2 years, they would have been predominantly on the admin based. How many redundancy payments have you paid out? How many retirements? But now it's very much focused on the makeup of our investments, not just from the selling point of view, but also in the geopolitical climate that we're in now.
Any more? Very good. Can I ask members to note the report? Fabulous. Then moving on to item 9, Sian, staying with you, if you can introduce the public elements of the pension fund quarterly update.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides a summary of the fund's overall position for the quarter, as well as relevant updates regarding the pooling agenda and the fund's initial triennial valuation results. Additionally, since the publication of this pack, the government have formally published on the 20th of November the latest stage of the reform of the local government pension scheme technical consultation. Officers are currently working on a response to this consultation. We welcome any questions about the public parts of this item.
Please.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask a fairly niche question about salary sacrifices, which is obviously something that we might be. Sorry? No, I wish. But it's obviously something that is expected to feature in the budget tomorrow. And I'd be interested to know sort of what the salary sacrifice process is for a DB fund such as ours, and the extent to which our members are using that, and therefore whether we think that that might in any way affect the amount of money potentially coming into the fund.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll take that question from Sian. So we don't actually offer that at Hammersmith and Fulham. And so none of our members will be affected by any tinkering by Ms Reeves in terms of changes there. So the same amount of money will be coming in, or if it is a decline, it certainly won't be as a result of any changes to salary sacrifice regulations.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
If there are no further queries, shall we press on? Adam Peter.
The only point I'd just like to make here, and I'm not sure it's the right point to make it, I've struggled sometimes with all of this, but it's just about training. Can I mention that? So I think it's very important with the changes that are going on at the moment. I would just like to give a shout out to the tri-borough training that takes place. I know that some people can't get on it, and I can't always get on it, but I do find it very helpful. And it's interesting, when I first went on it, I thought it would just be the 3 boroughs, but it's quite a significant number of councillors and others from across London that join it. So it is a way of keeping abreast of the situation. And I was invited to the local authority pensions fund conference recently, to their dinner. It was quite a good dinner, actually, I have to say. But it's interesting to be able to listen to what others are saying about changes that are taking place at the moment, but also to know that here in Hammersmith and Fulham, we are actively working to do the right thing and to look. I mean, I was interested in that idea about training, because one of the things that struck me from the last thing I went to is, what do we actually mean by local investment? But I don't want an answer to that now, but I think that's a discussion that would be worth having as we move forward. But I'd just like to sort of flag up that idea. Maybe as we move, once we know what is coming, because I believe there's another consultation going on at the moment, right? I've just read about it yesterday. So at some point, I would like, as a member of this committee, to sort of have a refresh in some way with others, you know, and it doesn't just have to be people from Hammersmith and Fulham, just, you know, where we are and what our roles are and all that kind of thing. And it doesn't have to be too sophisticated. But I just think the importance of training for staff is very, very important. And you've mentioned that, but I think also for committee members and others that service this committee, it's equally important in a time of change. So that's what I was going to say there. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And we do have the last lot of sessions, which thank you for attending. We have those recorded if you'd like them to be circulated, if you'd be interested in watching them, if you were not able to attend. Thank you very much.
Please do, Sian, and Councillor Lang putting us to shame for his diligence.
I go for the lunches, actually, mainly, but no, I don't. No such thing as a free lunch. No, it's just that I think it's important for us to keep abreast of the situation, and in this committee, obviously, as you do. But if you point anything else out to us, but I think the tri-borough training, I hope that continues.
Well, and to address your point around refreshing and renewing our values, of course, we're all up for a re-election next year, and a new committee will be in place, and I imagine item number 1 for them will be to renew and review those values.
Chair, just quickly, there will be another session end of January. I think it's the 30th of January. I've not sent out the invites yet, but it will be largely to the same format that you experienced last time. We had Jeff Houston to give the pooling backdrop and where we are with the current regulations, and also the actuary. We will be publishing the final results of the consultation with the funding strategy statement and final contribution rates. So those are 2 sessions. There's usually 5 sessions. As you say, this is across London. We get a couple of 100 people tuning in, and it's normally on a Friday, starts at 9 o'clock, goes through to midday.
Very good. I know when I'm booking my next annual leave. Perfect. So I think that takes us into the station then, Sian, with item 10 on investment proposals, if you could include the public elements.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out a number of recommended adjustments to the fund's investment portfolio, including the conclusion to not continue with the resonance investment, top up to the Quinbrook Renewables Fund 2, and a potential divestment from the LSIV mandate. I believe that's all that can be covered in the public session.
Any questions for the public session? Excellent. Can I ask then if sorry, Adam. Sorry, Peter. Go ahead.
Sian, can I just, with your indulgence, Chair, can I go back just a little bit, or maybe this is part of it. Is it the case that it says here in Appendix 2, overall, the investment performance shows that over the quarter to September 30th, 2025, the market value of assets increased by 43 million to 1.482. Is that 43 million in 3 months?
Yes, that's in the last quarter.
That the fund has generated?
Yes.
That's amazing. That's. I was just making sure that was that's in 3 months.
Yes, but it is quite volatile. So
Right.
in previous quarters, you may have seen ones that said the fund is down 9 million in quarter. So there is quite a lot of swing on a quarterly basis.
That's got to be a credit to the managers, and I'd like the committee to note that, because that's good for our members. As a member myself, that's very good for our members. That's a great trajectory. Thank you.
Strongly echo that, Peter. Our advisors and officials are accredited to this committee. Perfect. Moving on then, can I ask for a resolution to exclude